President Trump wants to negotiate peace between Russia and Ukraine and says Vladimir Putin is open to the discussion. Watch.
President Putin said that. He wants it to end. He doesn't want to end it and then go back to fighting 6 months later. We talked about the possibility, I mentioned it, of a ceasefire so we can stop the killing. And I think we'll probably end up at some point getting a ceasefire in the not too distant future.
The president spoke with both Putin and Ukraine's Zelensky on the phone yesterday, directing his national security team to begin discussions at the Munich Security Conference tomorrow. Trump also says he'll likely meet with Putin in person soon, potentially in Saudi Arabia. The president was also asked about Ukraine's bid to become a part of NATO. Watch.
I don't think it's practical to have it, personally. I think long before President Putin, they said there's no way they'd allow that. This has been going on for many, many years. They've been saying that for a long time, that Ukraine cannot go into NATO. And I'm okay with that.
Joining me now is Special Presidential Envoy for Ukraine and Russia, Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg. General, thanks so much for being with us today.
Hey, thanks, Maria. Good to be here. We just got off the airplane. Nice to be with you.
And I know you've got a goal and an agenda. You are in Munich preparing for these talks. You are trying to carry out the president's wishes of peace in the Middle East. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Maria, look, let's step back for a second. You know, I've been with President Trump since 2015, and I go back to an old classic, the art of personality and the art of war. And the president has really shown that. When you think what he's done in less than a month of taking office, he's now looking towards ending a war that's gone on for almost 3 years. It will be 3 years on the 24th of February. In one day, he's talked to Putin, and the same day he talked to Zelensky. Back-to-back conversations to bring these two fighting countries together to some type of peace, potentially go to a ceasefire right away, and then go into long-term peace negotiations. But look, one of the reasons we're here, Maria, is the real role that Europe is going to have to play in this. This is their lead. This is in their backyard. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about when we're here at Munich at the security conference, when we talk to the senior leaders. And I think it's going to be critical that they step up to this and they deliver and ensure that there's long-term peace in the region.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point in terms of Europe and how the Europeans play a role here. But, General, what do you make of what a deal could look like? Because I think it was Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, yesterday, who said something like, look, it's unrealistic to think that Ukraine can, you know, have the borders that it once had. So is any deal admitting that Ukraine will lose some territory?
Well, President Zelensky's already said that, and I think Secretary of Defense Hegseth was right. You're not going back to 2014 and the border they had right before they went into Crimea, the Russians went into Crimea. That's understandable, you know. So I think what you're going to have is some type of agreement on potentially the loss of territory. But look, you don't necessarily have to acknowledge that. You know, we didn't do that with the Baltics. There was a thing called the Wells Doctrine when the Soviets subjugated the Baltic countries. We never said they owned the countries. They said they were just under domination. And I think maybe you can look at this for a long-term, the potential long-term. But that's part of negotiations. And President Zelensky has said that. What you want is a real stable peace, one that is actually secure until there's a security agreement among all the parties that is long-term and is very, very sustainable. And that's going to depend a lot on the Europeans, and we understand that. And I said that just a minute ago. This is in their backyard. It's in their best interest to do it. But that's one of the reasons we're here at Munich, to talk to the senior leadership, the foreign ministers, the prime ministers, the presidents of the countries, to make sure that they understand that. And they are part of this deal that we're starting to set up, or the president is starting to set up.
So what specifically do you want the European leadership to do?
Own it. What I mean by own it, this is their backyard. They say, okay, we understand where the president is going. We're with the president. When the president of the United States, the leader of the free world, says, you go left, you go left. We go right, you go right. And they back him, and they say, this is what we were going to do. These are the agreements we're going to come up with. This is what we're going to provide, economically, diplomatically, militarily. And that's going to be very, very important. So when we come out of this conference, hopefully with the vice president here and the Secretary of State here, we'll have some pretty good agreements so everybody's in lockstep as we go forward with these negotiations between President Putin, President Zelensky and President Trump.
Wow. Thanks for your leadership on this, General. This is incredible. Meanwhile, Ukraine still wants and needs aid. The president sent the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, to Ukraine to try to negotiate some kind of an agreement over if the U.S. sends more aid, then they will give us what? Rare earth minerals that are so plentiful in Ukraine? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, they do have a lot of precious metals, and the Secretary of the Treasury was in Kyiv, and he came up with the discussion points for Zelensky to agree that there would be some type of payback using precious metals with the amount of aid that the United States has given. Let's use one. For example, the Ukrainians export titanium. We import titanium. And when you look at the crescent there, right on the western part of Kyiv, when you look at the precious metals that are there, there's a lot of them in this country. And I think it's a good idea to set up this economic partnership because it also provides security for Ukraine. When they know the United States is involved economically and we have an economic interest in Ukraine, this is another part of the security guarantee for Ukraine. And they should look at it that way. And I think as we go through the next few days, hopefully the Ukrainians will see that. They'll agree to this agreement that Scott was in Kyiv to talk about, and we'll come out with some type of an arrangement that sets us up for the future. And we're not just talking $1 or $2. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in the potential for the rare earth minerals that are here in Ukraine.
Yeah.
It is very, very rich here in rare earth minerals in Ukraine, and we should capitalize on
that.
Yeah,
and the American people are no doubt pleased to see that the president's not giving anything away, as has been the case over the last 4 years in terms of giving aid with nothing in return. There's a story breaking this morning as well, General. At least 20 people reportedly injured after a car drove into the crowd gathered in Munich city center ahead of tomorrow's Munich Security Conference. German investigators have detained the driver. CNN is reporting he's a 24-year-old national from Afghanistan. They're treating this as a, quote, suspected attack, General. Do you have any, have people been talking about this? Are you worried about your own safety ahead of this conference?
No, I don't. I never worry about my own safety. I'm fine. I think that when we got out of the cars this morning, we were told about it, and I think that's a developing situation. But, you know, it's sort of like great powers never worry about escalation, and I don't worry about my safety. Everything's fine here.
And General, before you go, real quick on the defense spending, because we are seeing $125 billion talked about for defense spending in this upcoming reconciliation plan. Is that enough? And where do you believe that money should be allocated, knowing that our military needs upgrading and modernization, as the defense secretary has said as well?
Yeah, you know, when you look at the United States military, it's critical we modernize our systems. It's critical we upgun. It's critical we resupply the ammunition and the support structure that we actually put into this war effort. So I think that's going to be critical, and Pete understands that, Pete Hegseth. And I think that's when he gets the big five, the defense industry, when you look at the defense giants that are out there, that he has to sit down and talk with them. You know, because what we've done, Maria, and people really don't understand this, a few years ago, we had what was called a 2.5 war strategy. In other words, we intended to fight a war in Europe, one in the Pacific, and then have one for contingency. We actually dropped that to 1.0, just one war. And because of that, we dropped our stockage levels, and we didn't modernize as well as we should have. That's something we need to change, and this president will. You know, that's one thing about President Trump. He really believes in this nation. He believes in its security. And when it comes back to Ukraine and Russia, he's also, he wrote the art of the deal. He kind of understands what needs to get done.
Yeah.
So I'm confident across all levels
he sure
that this
did.
is
One
going to get
deal,
solved and that this nation is well protected.
One deal after the next across the world. Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much, sir.